Hello, everybody. I think my Wi-Fi is not cooperating right now, but we are here anyway. It is Wednesday. We are Debate Sensei. We got Matt Shapiro, Esquire.
Hello.
From the great city of San Diego, Tim Seavey. And then I am your professor of communications, debate instructor, Jared.
And stripper for the night.
Yeah.
With his futuristic background.
Yeah.
Coming to you from a spawn room in Halo 3. Dropping in the newest Dre beat. Jared,
all right.
And tonight, we're discussing a topic from what?
The warm-up from El Camino College in sunny Southern California.
Yeah, they had 2 double preps for Parley, which I have not seen before. So 4 rounds of Parley, and it was 2 double preps. So they had to pick 2 dang good topics. And I'll say I think they did a good job of it.
Yeah,
this was like half and egg. Both teams did both. And they
45 minutes of prep for 2 rounds. Come back, 45 minutes of prep, 2 more rounds.
I kind of like it. I mean, you have to debate both sides, so in debate, they call that switch side debating, that you have to debate both sides of a single topic. When I was doing it, it was a different topic every single round. So sometimes you just got lucky. Sometimes you just got unlucky. But this way, you have to do both sides.
And Jared would have to debate like all the most relevant stuff, like Nixon. Can he do it again? And whatever the topic of the day was. And he pulled
dinosaurs.
It out.
Are they a danger to us?
Yeah. Are cars really going to catch on?
Probably not. These new horseless
this electricity thing is a fad.
Yeah.
Dangerous. All right. So, who's definitely pro-electricity is the globalists.
So that's the topic we got. The topic is globalization has done more harm than good.
Now, depending if you're Alex Jones or not, it depends. One of these sides is really obvious. Okay, I'm just going to say that out there. Alex Jones.
I guess it does give the opportunity for those wild ass conspiracy.
Like
the reptilians,
globalist, socialist, communist, leftist.
Oh man.
So we ended up. I think it created a pretty solid round. So we went value.
Hillary Clinton
seemed to make no sense. Yeah, living underground, building their reptile city.
Joe Biden. Oh my God! Don't get me started on these globalists.
Sorry. So I think there's some interesting takes on it. There's not a whole lot of terms to define, but got to start off with globalization. What the hell does that mean? And it's a business term. It really is. It really you could be talking in you could say that England was globalist because of colonialism or something.
You could say that globalists have rigged the 2020 election and gave fake illegitimate votes to one side.
Yeah,
and that globalists did it. You could say that. You can say that right into the internet.
He's really, really catering to a specific audience right now. He's really trying to cut into
if you are
Alex
pro,
Jones,
if you truly believe globalists have done more harm than good, this is your topic. You want this topic. You should go join a squad and do this topic at this school. That already happened, so you're too late. So I'm sorry.
Matt Shapiro doing his contrast.
Kind of a contrast to our last topic, which is about fascism, where
Joe Biden's getting canceled.
Very, very nationalist, right? It's supposed to be like inward turning and backwards looking and stuff like that. Where globalism is supposed to be like outward looking and forward thinking and stuff like that. It's a departure.
Yeah. Or
so
like just a global economy, a global market, good. Right? And
so
it's okay that we get our iPhones from a country and we don't make them ourselves. Is that okay? If that's okay,
that's a great example, right? Like
Yeah.
Pretty much all of our technology ends up assembled in Japan and China and Taiwan.
A different country than this country. Like everything you ever
every
buy.
country's technology pretty much comes out of those places. And then the batteries are mined out of, whatever other places. So like it's a lot of components from all over the world that are assembled.
Very globalist, okay? Very global. The mine is in a place outside of the States, and it's good that we do business with that, mine.
Well, let's start with the first. Let's start with the affirmative. So if you're saying that it does more harm than good, I think
that's the F.
Right? So more harm than good means we're listing off all the really terrible things that globalization's done.
Right.
Like the significant population of like children factory workers all over the world assembling iPhone parts, right?
No, that's a bunch of fake news right there. Let me tell you something.
Matt owns a lot of stocks of Foxconn, let me tell you. And he was a pioneer in leading those anti-suicide nets that they installed around the top of their building. And hey, it has cut suicide by no less than 8% this month. So good on you, Matt. It's a bad place to work, I'd say. Like it's not a good place.
Unlike Tim, who's pro-suicide, believe it or not. I don't know how. I didn't think I'd say it on the internet.
I've helped less than 8% this month. So what leg do I have to stand on?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not speaking for Tim, and everything I say is not true. There you go.
So the companies globalization is about companies that are operating on an international scale. That's really what it is, right? And so I thought there's a lot of different ways that you can take it. And I think a lot of people would go into like the manufacturing. I think that's a very straightforward way of doing it. And you could talk about all of the supply chain issues that we're having right now. It's like those supply chain issues are a direct result of globalization, right? It's like we can't get these computer chips into certain cars, which is jacking up the price because of demand and everything like that, because it only comes from one place. So there's an economic term called opportunity cost, where the manufacturing is like you should focus on the thing, like your country or your business should focus on the thing that you are good at. And like back in like the Adam Smith times, like the example was like Ireland shouldn't like have a whole bunch of vineyards, and Spain shouldn't be trying to raise too many sheep. You know what I mean? He's like, let the Irish raise and Spanish make one.
It's okay for the Spanish to get their sheep from Ireland and the Irish to get their wine.
Oh, their wool. Yeah. You don't buy a whole
wool.
sheep.
Sorry, what did I say? I meant wool or sheep products, I guess. Sheep intestines, wool, whatever they're buying, they can get that from Ireland. This is
what the Spanish do with their sheep is their business. It's a takeaway. Yeah. Leave it no further. That's, Adam Smith said that. So that's fair, right? So you can have these interdependent economies, right, where they can focus on one single thing, and you end up with all kinds of cool advantages that we'll get to on the negative side of, like, the more interdependent economies are, the less likely countries are to war with one another, and the more like soft power, checks it has back for conflict. But that's on the negative side. If we're still sticking on the affirmative and saying like does more harm than good, that type of interdependence ends up taking advantage of that country with the lowest labor law standards. Yeah. So whoever can do it the very cheapest, that is who will get all of that contract. 100%.
There's two approaches to this. It's like, one, you can go full Adam Smith, laissez-faire, like, hey, if I can source out my labor to a child in Indonesia for 1/16 the price, well then my capitalist ass is going to do that, and I'm going to make that money because that's what the stockholders want. You can do that, and if you believe that, hey, you're a globalist. Good, bad scenario might be framed a little different than someone saying a person should make it. That's bad.
We shouldn't have child labor. That one argument that child labor isn't that good.
I just want to. The child labor is the most extreme, but you could also, even if it was just adults being grossly underpaid in some other country, by just subrogating your problems to some other place, meaning, what's the problem? The problem is it costs money to make things. And, one byproduct of buying things from somewhere that has cheap labor is a cheaper product to the consumer, which they like. We like cheap products, but we also...
The they is important. The worker likes it or the consumer likes it?
The consumer, well, I mean, look, Tim's a consumer. He won't admit it, but Jared's a consumer. They like to go to Walmart and buy the cheapest product because it feels good to buy the cheapest product. But if that product is based on the back of someone in a different country, which brings the globalist part, because the country's not regulated well enough or in the same standard that we do here, if you think that's okay, well then, hey man, if you think that's okay, then you should go on the nay on this. But if you don't think that's okay,
we're arguing both sides.
Yeah. So, but if you usually don't have a choice in debate. So if you're on the affirmative, one way that you could take advantage of that line of argumentation is to think about whose job that would have been. So in the United States, there is at least there isn't as strong a union presence as there used to be, but they're stronger than some of these other places,
which has a direct correlation with the ratio of income to cost of living based on income or whatever since the 70s. Sorry,
but manufacturing by and large has not been going in a really positive
disappeared
for in the United States, right? Manufacturing jobs are not what is increasing in the United States. A lot of it's service sector stuff. And I'm not talking
mass manufacturing. I mean, there is still some manufacturing, but not
But the number of jobs in manufacturing has not been going in the right direction. And those jobs are really important for especially for unskilled labor, right? For people who don't go and get a college degree, and not everyone should have to feel obligated.
I hate that term unskilled labor, but I know what you mean, and you're right.
I mean, those jobs where they have on the job training, right? That's what we're talking about. It's you don't come in with the skills. You are kind of trained on the site in and of themselves, right? And so that it has a flip side, right? And so if you're on the affirmative, you could talk about the employment angle of it, and how exploitation has been happening. And there's globalization was, when I was a kid, it was it was being sold as something that was good. It's something that wasn't necessarily largely tested. And now we have, since then, 20 years of evidence, and it doesn't seem like all these things that were being promised are really coming true, right? A lot of the promises were that these developing countries now would get an influx of cash in these manufacturing sectors where they normally wouldn't. Maybe China has benefited from that, but
China,
a lot of other places not so much.
Yeah, so Taiwan,
they're doing good things over there in China. The leader over there, that leader over there in China, a drug dealer, and the average drug dealer kills 500 Americans every single day. Did you know that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go with that.
Yep.
It's hard to transition.
And so the second argument on the affirmative that I would typically make after the manufacturing one probably comes down to the increase in cyber crime. And it's an odd one. You can go in that direction, but with any kind of legitimate transit and market also goes black market and illegitimate transit and illicit flow of stuff that maybe was a problem only in one area can now become problematic everywhere. So the illicit flow of drugs, we didn't get drugs from most of Europe until we had really efficient supply chain, trade with Europe or, wherever. So with any kind of increased supply chain, I think that just comes along with it. That's maybe not an avenue that would go big, but then you start getting into more weapons trade or something like that. So you can get into some of the worst types of stuff. The more efficient channels you have of just anyone can trade anything anywhere, and the less regulation you have on that type of thing. And I know globalization still has regulation, but the more global pass-through there is, the easier it is for things to also fall into the wrong hands.
Opportunists to seize in malicious ways.
I mean, just if you have more shipments coming in, you have more places to hide stuff. You know what I mean?
There's no reason to swear here, Jared.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. Honestly, do keep that down. So as we do see,
keep that ship to yourself, okay?
So as there's like significant increases in any kind of transit, also so too goes up like drug trade and arms trade and like human trafficking and like all kinds of really horrible things also tend to go along with it. So I think those are an avenue that's probably more of just like a defensive argument, but it is still a real thing that like some of the worst crimes that we've got didn't really exist before globalization.
You know, I wanted to just talk about this because like I know we've actually gotten into pretty nuts and bolts of the AF of like the word globalization is kind of turned into this trigger word. And it is, I think, in my, personal view, I don't normally say it out loud, but I guess, to some degree in a moderation sense, it's good that we, like in the classic sense Jared was talking about, if one place has a lot of certain resource and another place has a lot of certain other resource, especially like a natural resource, hey, I guess that's kind of good on them and we can do business together in a fair way. But the second we're talking about just, pure labor costs and things like that, it gets very dark. And so that's not necessarily in my mind the same thing as buying your wine from Spain and buying your wool from Ireland in the grossly over exaggerated example.
In each one of those, it's like experts that are doing
the morality of buying wine and wool is so much different than buying labor for unsafe conditions or reprehensible wages. So I guess there's a lot of nuance to the word globalization, and like some of it is it's not left right. It's not necessarily it's not just this broad stroke term. I think there's kind of a lot of nuance that you can kind of if you want ground on either side, you kind of got to work within that framework of what exactly you're advocating for, highlighting the strengths of resource-based economies, natural resource-based especially, versus the abuse of dehumanization and labor deregulation in certain countries being exploited.
It's really true. That left-right divide thing is actually kind of interesting because when I was in college, it was very much like conservatives that were very pro globalization, right? They were like they wanted like free trade was very.
They wanted a factory in a unregulated country to make their products for less.
I'm just saying they were very, very free trade. Like it was like that was a call, like a rallying cry for them about like how free trade. And now it seems to have that at least on that aspect has very much flipped. Right through the Trump presidency, there was a whole lot of tariffs that were imposed upon things coming in, and he was really imposing a lot of protectionist, economic policies, and Republicans seem to have kind of gone along with that. So it's become a lot more sort of nationalist as far as the economic focus on things, and it's a very interesting shift. And to see Democrats, liberals, or they were doing WTO protests and they were like trash in Seattle and stuff like that, and now they're the ones that are accused of being like these big old globalists and everything like that. So it's kind of been an interesting transition between those two parties.
Even to say what you're kind of saying is back, the reality is the hollowing out of the infrastructure of jobs and manufacturing. Historically, like you were talking about, the same people who were pro-globalization, you're saying in the past, who kind of were more conservative, right-leaning, at that same time, the American economy's jobs and manufacturing is being hollowed out because Jared's so old. He was alive for all that. You know what I'm saying? Like we weren't around for that kind of thing, but he was. So now we live in a different world the entire time Jared's been alive, where there's just the globalization argument is kind of rejected from the right, I think, in a lot of ways because they don't understand how the jobs left the country. And what am I saying this for? It's ironic because this is kind of when you see that little divide in Republican politics, in my opinion, where, you know, there's the very powerful globalists. I mean, let's be honest. People, employers, designers, manufacturers, inks, and LLCs that benefit from things like cheap labor. I mean, it's the bottom line when it comes down to it.
There is a facet though that, like, the first thing that popped to my mind about this,
the first
thing that popped to my mind actually didn't have to do with manufacturing, and that was social media. That, like, if you can
or
have
services, telecommunication, all
you
that
can
stuff
have an affirmative case that just says basically, like, social media has done more harm than good. And like, you could say, like, social media
globalization.
They're like,
which was a prior
organizations, you know what I mean? It's like and you say, all right, there we go. I had a really interesting conversation with a friend of mine, Shah Davari from Orange Coast College, and he was talking about how it's really created a whole lot of, like, you know, tribalism and factionalism and stuff like that, where it used to be that you would be able to measure how moderate somebody was by how much TV they watched, because the television programs were all centralized, right? It's like you only had so many programs to watch, and they wanted to get the center of the audience. But now that you can just kind of pick out your own audience, it makes it more and more fractured and contentious and everything like that.
Concentrated, like orange juice.
Well, you could concentrate the crazy. That you could do that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Thanks for doing the follow up on that one, Jared.
Well, then I feel like we've got a healthy dose of color commentary on the negative up to this point. But in our few minutes remaining, let's get the negative there.
Yeah.
Take it away, Matthew Shapiro. What would you argue on the negative of globalization's done more harm than good?
Well, globalization has been good because there's wine in Ireland and there's wool in Spain. Okay, it gets kind of cold in February.
He's got himself an Irish sheep waiting for him at home.
And it's hard to, I guess, raise sheep in Spain. I don't know. There's probably some sheep in Spain. This is a gross over-exaggeration. I kind of just carrying it like a bouncing ball through the little videos back in the day, all the way through this episode. But just the look, okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. There's like resources. There is no diamond there's no diamond mine around me. Okay. But if I want to get married, Jim, let me ask you something. Did you get married to your did you get married recently?
Sure did.
Did you buy a ring?
With a diamond.
Did the ring have a diamond?
In a laboratory in the United States of America.
It was in a lab. Okay, hey, look.
Damn
okay, Jared,
right.
Let's go. Hold on. I got two contestants here. Jared, are you a married man?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my friend Jared is married, ladies. So just know that. But,
that's where
did you buy a ring, and did the ring have a diamond?
Yeah.
Is it made in a factory like Tim's, or is it
No.
Or do you know where that diamond came from?
I mean,
it's been
like 20 years. So back then, that was like right when we first were.
So that's definitely a blood diamond. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke.
So
that's such a bad joke.
We made sure it had that tracking number.
He has the certification.
Yeah.
He has the piece of it. Okay, look. All I want to say is this: it's okay to like diamonds. It's okay to buy diamonds. It's okay to buy diamonds with the certificate, like Jared has. And like Tim has, by the way, I'm sure, that says his name, the factory. He's like, I got a certificate too. Look, there's nothing wrong with liking it. There's nothing wrong with international markets, especially if the place where the mine is making a bunch of money. Like, that's very good, okay? Where globalization can be messing with this is if they're siphoning money from the natural resource. That's not so good. Okay, but the very nature of buying things from international markets is not bad.
Siphoning money from a natural resource.
Yeah, it's pretty much. It's like De Beers has this big old.
Well, no, okay. All I'm differentiating.
I don't think you're going to win on
buying diamonds.
Maybe pick someone else. That's a bad example.
No, I like this example so much because it's global. Like, you can't buy an Arizona diamond. Like, it's very rare.
I mean,
and why is Arizona even local? It's out of state for us.
I think so. I'll say it's just a bad example because it's not like a needed thing. No lives have been saved by diamonds. Like it's
but it's okay to want a diamond. Like, there's nothing wrong with a diamond.
COVID vaccine. So there's where I'm gonna go. We would not have got to the COVID vaccine nearly as fast if it were not for globalization, right? So like thousands of doctors working around the clock in all corners of the world, sharing information, and then manufacturing, disciplines all around the world, sharing resources to be able to come up with Project Warp Speed, because I knew Matt was excited to call it out as soon as he could, to come up with a vaccine as soon as possible and then distribute that shit as widely as possible. 6.2 billion doses have been distributed from countries that made it to countries that do not make it. Billion doses. Like, that's pretty crazy. So that's pretty awesome, right? Like, conservatively, millions, if not hundreds of millions of lives, they're like tens or hundreds of millions of lives saved from, COVID because of vaccines. Like, that's a pretty damn cool thing. So globalization, 1 point.
I see like the global markets have made it easy to make all the transport quick and the research from one place to another quick. And
I think this other example might be a little trickier, but I think that China has definitely benefited from it. China's was in a bad spot right after the revolution. I mean, there was massive starvation happening all over the place, and when they opened up their markets a little bit more, and strangely enough, this is actually Richard Nixon kind of came in and helped sort of create this relationship, that they started opening up their markets a little bit more, stopped being so sort of dogmatic communist, and had their version of communism that was still sort of globalist. And more people have entered into sort of a middle-class lifestyle in China because of globalization than any other reason I could think of. And so I do think that there's plenty of debate on that one, which is why it makes it a lot trickier. I think the COVID example is a lot more of a slam dunk. But if you're talking just sheer numbers of people, go for the most populous country and kind of see they in the last 50 years, they've been pretty globalist.
We didn't define globalism.
Yeah, we did.
We did?
Yeah.
What was your definition?
Second argument I'd go for. So it's an economic term, as Jared was saying, and so refers to countries that can outsource and connect around the world. Second big one that I would go for is the Green Revolution. So this is something our team went for. Now, so that that
answers the social media too.
Sure, right. So now I think this one's tricky because I think it's very turnable. So Green Revolution, right? The dude won a Nobel Prize. And Norman Borlaug won the Nobel Prize for inventing golden soybeans and the Green Revolution of how do we get nutrients to countries that are literally going to die of starvation because population growth we can't handle it. So pretty amazing, human ingenuity coming to the rescue of how do we feed millions of people. But I think the answer back to that pretty quickly is with the rise of food production, so too has gone the rise of carbon emissions, greenhouse gases, and global warming. So the better, if the measure of a successful piece of globalization is more humans live and the population of humans goes up and they live better by consuming more stuff, that just seems like there's a pretty big gaping answer that on the opposite side is the globe suffers. A diamond mine sized hole.
Gaping.
And
diamond mine.
I thought you were talking about the green revolutions in the Middle East that were sweeping across the globe. They were using social media when social media was kind of in its nascent stages. They were using Twitter and Facebook to kind of organize their green revolutions. And so that I think is an interesting, but also a very turnable case.
Are you talking Arab Spring or Green Revolution?
Arab Spring. A lot of them were called. A lot of them have green revolution names. So
I thought that all those pretty much were on Arab Spring. I was talking
Arab Spring's a better one,
but boom of food production.
Especially
for as exploitive.
Green is
for all the exploitation and horribleness that occurred. Anyone who goes on the neg can say that the United States, the backbone of its economy for hundreds of years, again, despite exploitation and horrible things, was based on exportation of natural resources to the world, which created just, prosperity for some. And the ideas have carried, I guess that's kind of ironic because, the position of so many nationalists who love the country so gosh darn much don't want to think about things like that, who, like Alex Jones, would be arguing against globalism. But the irony is those very same statues he wants to save created an economy based on the exportation of a product. So they are hypocrites. There, I said it.
Yeah, so I think it was a meaty debate because you can argue both sides of most of those contentions. Like, I think everything had a lot of ground for rebuttal and rejoinder back and forth a good amount to determine is something really, harmful or is it actually good. And I think I actually land on the side of the affirmative simply for the environmental piece of it.
This America first. Oh my gosh.
Like
Tim's a fascist. I told you last week. You're hearing it again. It's not that black and white, and I'm being ridiculous. And that's the ironic part of the world today. It's
no, the ambiguity.
There's nuance. There's nuance to the arguments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the term is ambiguous in and of itself, and then you start trying to focus in on certain
carve
examples.
out your ground
example
and defend what you want to defend. Right? Yeah. I mean, you can't just this blanket term mean some good or bad thing. There's facets to it that you can definitely be a proponent or work against.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our time, everybody. Okay. We got Matt, Tim, and Jared. We'll be back next week. What are we doing? We're talking IPDA topics, right?
Sure are. I got some good ones from the tournament.
Yeah, we'll do that one too. All right. See you then, everybody.
Take care.